Hello, everybody. Welcome to our post-daily news update for Friday, November the 19th. I am John Pollock. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, what's up?
Lots. There's lots to talk about. We were doing this a bit earlier on a Friday. It's obviously pressing news here to talk about the latest round of WWE cuts. With each one, I think that we're more or less immune to the shock of these surprises, Way, and we say it every time that this just appears to be the new course of action for the company, that these aren't even spaced out months apart. These we're just getting off the latest wave a couple of weeks ago and adding 8 more names to the mix.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily seem to be, any sort of regularity in the timing of these anymore, and it seems to be just whatever is convenient. So it's kind of nerve wracking, obviously, if you're a member of the roster, to not know when these would appear, and yeah.
So we'll go over the names here, and I'll just list them off, and then we can maybe break down and talk about some of the individual cuts. But the 8 include John Morrison, Jaxson Ryker, Drake Maverick, the remaining members of Hit Row, all 3, Isaiah Swerve Scott, AJ Francis, Top Dollar, and Ashanti the Adonis, as well as Shane Thorne and Tegan Knox. So I think that there's probably a combination that went into some of these. You do have some older performers that, it clearly is a directive way of getting a more youthful main roster. John Morrison would be on the higher end of these names at the age of 42, but also somebody that, came in and I thought had whether you enjoyed the comedy or not, it was clearly an act that WWE was very invested in with The Miz, and, being in a very featured spot at WrestleMania this past year. And there's the double whammy of it that this comes just weeks after his wife was released and was very upset, and I think understandably so, on Thursday night, and kind of venting those frustrations. But Jaxson Ryker, another one, 39 years of age. Drake Maverick, I think anyone could see that, where his slot was on the main roster, that unfortunately he would find himself amongst a wave of cuts. And it seemed that he had the ultimate video ready to run as soon as this call came.
Oh my God, this guy, this took a lot of time to produce. And so I don't know how long he had it been waiting for something.
He had
like
to
this.
have known for a while. Like it was so well done. Like just the sit down and then in walks himself to confront his former self. You have to watch this. Like what a talented dude this guy is.
Yeah, conceptually, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It starts off basically exactly the same as his last video, and instead just completely takes you on a ride after that. So if you haven't seen it, I won't really say anymore. But this is a man who very clearly thought, how do I get ahead of this? How do I use this to my advantage? There's going to be a great amount of attention on all of us for a brief moment at the moment that we are announced to be released. How do I use that to my advantage to springboard me to the next chapter of my career? And this man did it probably better than anybody I have seen. So, I don't know how in demand of a talent Drake Maverick is, but certainly he has elevated his stock that much higher. And this is the second time he's done it coming off of one of these releases. So really absolutely incredible job.
Tegan Knox is a real unfortunate one. Like here is someone who just had obstacle after obstacle with all of the knee surgeries that she had dating back to the first Mae Young Classic, and then getting the call up over the summer for this disjointed team with Shotzi that was booked in those non-title matches, went nowhere. They split up the team. And I thought when they split them and she was drafted to Raw, like I looked at Tegan Knox as someone like they need bodies in this women's division, but they clearly had no plans for her. She did nothing since the draft, and unfortunately finds herself cut. But she's one of those names that I could see. Like, we always look at AEW first and foremost, I think, of potential landing spots. And I don't know how many landing spots there are going to be for this crop, but I could see Tegan Knox. But it's a very different landscape that she is going back to than the one she left when she signed with WWE.
I absolutely think that there's far more, I think, demand right now within AEW for experienced women, female wrestlers, and women who have established a certain level of name value and star power, and people who haven't necessarily, like, people who fit the narrative of talents that have been considered perhaps wasted potential or not being given their fair due in the WWE. And I certainly feel like Tegan Knox fits that to a T. I
know.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I think it's of course very unfortunate, but at the same time, I think she's developed a great deal of name value for the audience who really wants to see her succeed. We've all been along for the ride with her as she's gone through those heartbreaking injuries. And I think you immediately have an incredible baby face that, for whatever reason, like, the WWE main roster never took advantage of. Yes, she suffered a number of very unfortunate injuries, but in that time, she developed a great story and a great comeback story that they never once mentioned on SmackDown, or whatever she was doing with Shotzi and Knox. So it's really unbelievable that, I mean, why even call her up? What did they see in her for those first few months that they ultimately decided, was worthless? So that
and
one's
specifically
perplexing.
pairing those two together, like they broke up Shotzi and Ember in NXT to create this team that they brought up, and obviously the idea was creating challengers, but they went about it in just the most non-directional way of
Still waiting for a title shot.
There's the eternal title shot that will never come. So yeah, she is one that I could certainly see, but we'll talk about kind of just an overall landscape issue as well. But of course, Shane Thorne, we mentioned here, he's 36 years of age. Certainly you could imagine at some point reconnecting with Mikey Nichols.
I think Mikey Nichols already tweeted it out. So
there you go.
Pretty sure that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone very he had the NXT tenure, and then the main roster, I mean, just another casualty of retribution.
But yeah, I think, so many of the talent from Australia, I think they're really perfect fits for what New Japan might be looking for right now. Mikey Nichols already has that connection, and I think Shane Thorne and TMDK reforming in a New Japan would really be perfect.
And then we have Hit Row, which are, of course, going to be the ones that jump out. And it is, on the surface, absolutely mind-boggling that this act, one of the most, I think, unique and interesting acts that WWE, regardless of roster, has cultivated this year, they are all gone by now. And I would have to suspect, Wade, that there's more to this than some of the other cases that we have here, because it just makes absolutely no sense.
When you say more, do you?
I mean, it was stated like in the Observer. I mean, it kind of alludes to the fact of like Top Dollar rubbing people the wrong way. That's kind of vague, but my meaning of it being more to it than that is that this is not where we're just trying to make a number and making these cuts, or this being an age thing or anything like that. This is an act that was, yes, it kind of came up in the prior NXT, but was very much of like, this was a W for NXT that has not had many W's this year. It was fast tracked to the main roster. It had just started a feud last week with Jinder Mahal and Shanky. Mm-hmm. It's completely abrupt. And I think it's a tremendous act, all of them. I think all four now. Brianna Brandy, I hope that she has trademarked Fab B, because she should totally use that name after WWE.
She can, but to be quite honest with you, any four of these guys, I think, have proven to have the creative potential to not necessarily need to even rely on the Hit Row name. Simply the four of them being attached together, and this of anybody, I think Brianna Brandy, I mean, she's got to be upset, for anybody. But the fact that the four of them can be reunited again, the chemistry is just so perfect between the four of them that we're going to get that somewhere else. If the WWE doesn't want them, somebody else will take them, and they will make a lot of money with them. Top Dollar is, who knows like what the reason is, but like when you look at the people that they are keeping, he fits that like so well. He's big, he can talk.
He's 6'5", he's over 300 pounds.
He's young. He's
NFL
a former,
background. He's 31. He checks off every box of what NXT 2.0 is trying to create to show people that we can create new stars. He was thrown on like that A&E show as the host. Like they clearly saw a ton of potential in this guy and was probably viewed as the most valuable of the four internally in WWE.
Yeah, yeah. And like putting him on the reality TV show, like it just seemed like his potential was just so much higher than even what Hit Row would have been. So to see all of them get cut right away is incredibly disappointing. Somebody like Swerve, I think was just getting started in this company, and probably even within
unfortunately him on his own, like
not a good fit.
Not a good fit for what their vision is now. Like it was he and Ashanti the Adonis were as part of that collective. They had that value on their own. I certainly would have seen them struggling. Like I think this is really was a group that they saw built around Top Dollar. And I just, man, go back and watch that Cypher celebration in July and then tell yourselves that by the end of the year, all four of these will be gone from the company. And it's stunning.
It's absolutely stunning. It's a stunning choice by the WWE. But I mean, I don't worry about these four because I know for a fact like they will go on to be successes in this industry. It's just for whatever reason the WWE choosing to create these people and giving somebody else like this blank check. Hey, like we built these people up. Now you guys can go and make money. So they can do that on their own, but like I'm sure any promotion would be, that's a good question.
But how many promotions are there, Way?
Yeah, it's true. It's
like
true.
This group is not going to walk into New Japan together. There's no Ring of Honor option. Like Impact is there, but this is the other part of the whole thing is that are any one of these individuals going to go into an Impact and increase their business through the roof? Like we saw with AEW involvement. Like, yeah, it's like over time, like has Impact greatly grown its base over the last year? And that was with frequent Kenny Omega matches and appearances. So it becomes tough when you have talent that's coming off of WWE television that is, was making a certain amount and now like, what are your options? Like it really is AEW or a bit of an unknown, and you're in the most crowded landscape possible of free agents that somebody like a John Morrison, if this had happened a year ago, 2 years ago, I think you look at, man, he's got so many different options. He's going to be fine. And today, I think there's much more of a question of where a 42-year-old John Morrison lands. Like that's not a guy that AEW needs to jump to the phone instantly to get. And if not, then I think you also have to measure your expectations if you're any of these talent of what is the available financial options out there for companies that are coming out of a pandemic, independents that, I mean, it's how much they can afford and how much are these people going to necessarily jump their business, because like Impact is loaded with like a lot of names. There's a lot of places that have names and talent, but is there the demand of the fan base to be able to support all these different places? That's the kind of ongoing struggle.
Yeah, in terms of money, I mean, again, I don't really know what these guys were making, but if it was a main roster contract, I think that'll be very hard to perhaps match. But creatively, I think they will be far more fulfilled, and also their opportunities outside of strictly just being professional wrestlers, I think, will be that much greater. I imagine almost all four of them will probably be looking at some sort of like, I don't know, music making type of venture between the four of them in conjunction with their wrestling careers. Maybe taking that a little bit deeper than they have already. And it's a great question, like are there full-time slots for these wrestlers, or is it more of a hybrid model now? You know, where you work the occasional dates for, I don't know, an Impact, stay on TV, or stay on TV through it, even an MLW or something like that, and then on the side, do your side hustles, make your money elsewhere to make up for that amount.
Creatively, like I would look at Hit Row that, I mean, I think creatively they would be very fulfilled in an Impact or an MLW. It just comes down to like how many dates can an MLW offer you a year? How many, like what is that side of the equation? To me, I would be very intrigued by Hit Row in whatever its incarnation would be, just storming into AEW, instant feud with the Acclaimed, the stuff they had going on with the Young Bucks. Like there's tons of stuff there. I think that I could see a lot of value in those four together. BFAB, I mean, for her, it's, and you could throw it in for Top Dollar as well. Like these are relatively new performers. Top Dollar had his first match over the past year. Brianna Brandy, it's, that's a high bar to just walk into AEW if she's going to be looked at to wrestle as well. Like there's not that necessity. Like it's the four of them are stronger together than apart.
Totally. Absolutely.
So there you go. Those are some thoughts on the cuts coming out of this. But just overall, when you look at the sheer number of cuts, not even looking at last year's cuts that we had, but this year alone, like there are going to be some people, Wai, that I imagine will either be occasional performers or ultimately leaving the industry. Like there are not going to be full-time positions for 80 people.
It's true. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's sort of the unfortunate side effect. But the alternative is you stay employed by this company, but you're not used at all. You're spending your whole day in catering. Like if you're Shane Thorne, I get the sense the money I'm sure was great. The security I'm sure is great, but
you're 36. It's like if you have a desire to really succeed, like these are key years. Like you're not getting younger at 36. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like
there's a lot to be said for creative fulfillment. There's a lot to be said for professional wrestlers actually going out there and wrestling and being used. So I get that sense from him. I get that sense from Tegan Knox. I get the sense from Drake Maverick. People who actually just want to perform and create. And if they can make a living doing it, then that's a bonus. And I hope that a lot of them can. I hope that there's at least enough sustenance in that industry to give them incomes to sustain their current lifestyles. But I think simply being in the public eye for a lot of them mentally, creatively, will be better than where they were within this company.
Yeah, and it's going to be like I've always talked about. I talked about it when BFAB was released, and just like this hole you have if you're a viewer of SmackDown, and all of a sudden you tune in one week and one member is gone and just no explanation. We're gonna get the ultimate one when the Miz comes back to Raw, and we're probably gonna get no mention of John Morrison. It's just, like that is just so awkward.
Totally.
Like if you somehow are not following this, and I imagine most are that are watching Raw, but nonetheless, just as storytellers, all of a sudden this guy has disappeared that was attached at the hip of the Miz, who himself is going to be hurt by this. He is a better performer working off of people, whether it's Maurice or John Morrison. So I mean, it does harm one of their existing acts and one of their featured ones.
I mean, in their mind, they probably think, oh, well, I mean, The Miz is a star here. We can really pair anybody with him, and we might as well pair somebody younger, maybe an Austin Theory with The Miz, Like, they're thinking, I think they're just looking at stats on paper. This person is this old. Why are we devoting this much TV time to this person who we're not going to, eventually headline a WrestleMania with? And that's really unfortunate. And as far as, not mentioning these releases, I mean, that's just been their MO their entire existence. I mean, there's a real lack of care for the details in their on-screen presentation. That's why they don't give a shit when, people suddenly appear from one show to another, and they certainly wouldn't give a shit when, all of a sudden Hit Row is no longer a part of this feud with Jinder Mahal. They just assume that their audience either doesn't care or doesn't remember.
And you have to imagine, Wade, like with the Hit Row example, when you just kicked off an angle last Friday, like I am sure that that the creative team just gets this thrown on them that all of a sudden these three are all gone,
It's them. It's the video game people I constantly feel terrible
Oh my God.
for. You know,
The
like
video
don't
game
even
people.
bother. You know, like just wait until the week before to do all your renders. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and another unfortunate day in a long list of them for WWE as the numbers just grow and grow of all of these cuts. And I hope that this is an industry that can expand and support such a thriving free agent market that's so concentrated in two big companies at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it'll definitely take a while for like a real number three to get up there and thrive. You know, up there even with an AEW, but the talent is there, and like you know, companies like Impact and MLW really stand to gain a whole lot of attention from a lot of fresh blood. And maybe
but you also
even
have to
another
ask people
competitor.
why are people not watching Impact or MLW or ROH in these in enough numbers that can really make one of those such a big three? And I think that's the question of it's so much content on TV, and what are those companies doing that WWE and AEW are not fulfilling for the fan? And the fact is, if you're a wrestling fan, you're getting a lot of what you want from one company or the other with, I think, less desire for more. You can get more on top of that, but how big is that number of people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean,
we've seen it with New Japan. Like New Japan interest, you cannot deny is down throughout the pandemic, and some of that's the pandemic, absolutely, and who they've been limited to be using on their roster. But it's also like I think AEW has filled a lot of people's a lot of the holes that a WWE fan may feel disenfranchised by. That AEW is fulfilled, and I'm getting my fix there with 3 hours a week. I can't fit more into it. So I can't say for certain like a third company would be viable. And I mean, for the industry, it would be great. It would be great if all of these companies could lift themselves because the talent is certainly out there.
Yeah, I think you also have questions of, you know, accessibility for some of these smaller companies and also ultimately relevance, you know, in the grand creator conversation of what people are watching, what people are talking about in online communities. But I do always think that there's a chance for people to break through. Like the fact that we're even talking about Drake Maverick's Twitter video tells you that there's interest in great creative, good work that's out there. So I think everybody stands a chance.
Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that AAA was informed on Wednesday that Kenny Omega will be getting surgery and won't be able to face El Hijo del Vikingo at TripleMania in Monterrey coming up on December the 4th. So AAA apparently has an idea for a backup plan, but it has not been finalized, according to Dave's report. And he goes on to say that Omega will be getting surgery for his shoulder, knee, and abdominal issues, and likely for a septum issue using different specialists. The surgeries will not be that major, and his expectation would be for him to return in or around late February, but Tony Khan has told him to take the time off that he needs. So that answers the question about TripleMania. And
he's getting the full tune-up.
He is going and getting just open up the hood and fix everything.
Man.
Yeah,
wow.
It sounds like a laundry list of issues, and I'm sure that he's been dealing with a lot, like the shoulder. You know, he has spoken in the past that he's been able to work matches without the need of like using his shoulders and such. February sounds like let's not just, you know.
There's no rush. It's not like
you don't need to rush back. You totally don't need to rush back. This company is not in a position where it is contingent on one person. Kenny Omega has been a huge pillar for them, but you are more valuable to us healthy for a longer period of time rather than racing back and you just go till the wheels fall off, which may not be all that far off if you don't take care of yourself now. He's probably gone through God knows how much injury-wise during this title reign. That he has just worked through.
He could take a full year off if he really needs to. You know, like I hope in that time he focuses on the video game. If he still has any hand in the women's division, maybe you know contribute that way. But most importantly, I want him to have a long career. You know, we all want that. We all want him to wrestle into his 50s, if it's very possible. But you know, you're also talking about an AEW that is in great shape right now and really not in need. Like we're at a time where John Moxley can take time off. Kenny Omega can take time off. Chris Jericho, if he wanted to, can take time off, and you still have enough star power on that show to keep things afloat.
And Jericho will be like they have a big Fozzy tour coming up. Like they're like that is all built in. And you're right, this company can last. And in a scenario where we're gonna have a scenario likely where Moxley, Omega, and Jericho are gone, and I don't think they are going to suffer from those losses. Like those three, they have helped put this company into a position where there's a wealth of stars that they can maneuver to, and it's backed by booking that has been able to add to that mix.
And in many cases, these sort of absences only help to increase the star power of a Kenny Omega for that big return. They'll build things around it, and by the time he comes back, he will be this. His legend will only grow from the absence. It's a real shame we're not going to get that match with Vikingo, and I think it kind of sucks for AAA, to kind of loan their championship. But I mean, they gained a lot of value from Kenny being attached to their brand too. But I think in Kenny's mind, they probably feel like, okay, I owe you guys one. And I think that Vikingo match will hopefully still be something that we'll see down the line, and maybe it'll be a bit bigger by the time we get there.
Dynamite on Wednesday, coming out of Full Gear, did 984,000 viewers, 480,000, a .37 in the 18 to 49 demo from Brandon Thurston and Showbuzz Daily. It was their best numbers since October the 6th, and they were third for the night among cable, behind the two NBA games. The big increases were male viewers. Males 35 to 49 were up 24% from the week prior. Men 18 to 49 up 14%, although their 18 to 34 demo was down 9%. So I think if you use the figure of like an 8% hit that they are taking because of the time zone changes going live, I mean, this would push this one above 1 million. But this was not the level of show coming out of All Out.
Yeah, kind of maybe in line with projections. I kind of feel like I don't know how much there is to panic, or at least like study until that TBS move, which I think will change a whole lot. And we're 5 weeks away from that.
Yeah, January 5th. So, month and a half.
Yeah.
Canada, actually, they did a very big number. They did 130,600 viewers, which was up 64% from the week before, and their highest since the post All Out edition of Dynamite. And tonight,
Canada loves cowboy shit.
They clearly do. Rampage tonight is the taped show from Wednesday. Darby Allin against Billy Gunn, Jade Cargill against Red Velvet in the TBS tournament, and Adam Cole brings a fish to a fist fight against Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
I see a lot of continued online sentiment. I mean, anytime WWE announces one of these cuts, it just it continues to weather what little goodwill they still have with much of the, I would say, online fan base that continues to follow them. And more, like this has been happening every year now, but more people are finding it difficult to continue to support this company and maybe even continue to watch. Ultimately, I mean, do you think any of this stuff gets reflected in the ratings?
My gut says no. I think that even when there is the negative sentiment, it very rarely ever actually affects WWE's business. And the only ones I can really cite of recent memory was back when it was the whole fallout of the Jamal Khashoggi murder, where you did see WWE Network numbers go down that quarter, and you saw the stock drop, which was interesting because that was, I would say, the most negativity they got that you could make a correlation to business. But yeah, over time, there's nothing to. I look at it more so as just a sign of, like, I also look at it as such a creatively stifling decision in some. And again, like maybe there are more details to the Hit Row stuff, but if you saw Paul Heyman's interview with Ariel Helwani, he went on this big speech about how he was asked about previous cuts, and this was taped obviously before Thursday night's cuts, but he talked about how when someone leaves,
talked about Hit Row.
He mentioned Hit Row. And when one talent leaves, it opens up a spot, and people have to be aggressive. Go out there, grab that spot, out-talk everybody, be something different on the show. And here you had an act that checked off every box that Paul Heyman listed, and it didn't matter. What does that tell your locker room that is coming up, that are trying to come up with ideas, that are told that even if I hit a home run, it is not making me immune from any of these cuts? It's like Zack Ryder, that at the time, what a blow that was to the entire locker room that saw a guy go out there and jump through all the hoops that they are told to reach this mythical brass ring, and it meant nothing because you didn't do it on our terms, and the guy was just booked into oblivion. And I look at this as like, here is an act. You could not have put together a better situation for these four to jump onto SmackDown, and none of it mattered in the end.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely perplexing. We wonder if there's more to the story, but for now, it's really hard to understand.
SmackDown has a Sasha Banks against Shotzi in the lone match that has been announced there. And quickly going over the Survivor Series, we'll do this very, very quickly, mainly centered around the top two matches that I think are the only ones really of note on the show. Big E against Roman Reigns. Is this a foregone conclusion? Roman Reigns goes over. Do you see anything creatively coming out of this beyond that finish?
I mean, it's always tough to tell, especially when you have two, champions that I would argue neither can afford a loss right now. I mean, Roman did take a technical loss with that countout thing, but he ended up winning the crown. I mean, we have a crown at stake, John. So I do feel like, it should end with Big E being able to rescue that from the clutches of Roman Reigns for his good friend Xavier Woods.
I like that.
How do they get out of this while preserving both of them? Maybe Big E takes the loss and then steals the crown, as if that somehow balances things. It's tough for me to predict this one.
Yeah, you do have a lot to work with in terms of just Kofi and Woods coming to Big E's aid, the Usos getting involved. Like, it could be a total mess. My bigger question is that no one is going to dispute, like, Roman Reigns, he has been the unstoppable monster on SmackDown. But who is this Roman Reigns character built up for? Who is the babyface in waiting to eventually beat Roman Reigns? And the best answer I can give you as to who is the babyface that benefits from the heel Roman Reigns character is Roman Reigns becoming a babyface at the end of all of this and becoming that babyface. I don't necessarily see this benefiting any one big star to eventually topple Reigns, because that person doesn't exist, and Big E is the best option of the few that you have out there.
I think they're waiting for that person, frankly.
Well,
yeah,
let's wait some more. Like, who's it going to be? Is it Von Wagner? Like, there is nobody in the periphery that you can even look like 18 months down the road. This will be the guy, and we're going to start that story now. Like, that person does not exist.
Well, when The Undertaker was going through his streak, I mean, I don't think anybody thought that, ultimately Brock Lesnar would be the one to benefit from that value, but like when pushed against the wall, they had to make that decision. And then maybe with Roman, it'll be similar. But I actually think like what you're suggesting is probably makes a whole lot more sense, that ultimately Roman Reigns will be the babyface to usurp Roman Reigns, the heel, and become the top star of this company again. From listening to that interview, I Heyman is throwing the name of Brock Lesnar out there, so we can probably expect, like, that to me seems like the most likely WrestleMania. It's Brock Lesnar. He just like takes all the long-term value.
Have you ever seen somebody take a figurative fire extinguisher to destroy any potential fanfare for a Rock match at WrestleMania? Then when Ariel proposed that, it's like, no, I don't like the timing of Rock for next year's Mania, which, I mean, we know Rock has flat out stated doesn't work for him. And then he brings up like Lesnar as a potential, and Ariel's reaction, we just saw it.
Well, hey, why get your fans' hopes up when you know it's not going to happen? He did suggest what a better place than Hollywood to bring out The Rock. So continuing expectations for maybe the next year's WrestleMania, and we'll even see if that's possible. But I mean, if I had to guess a name for this year's Mania, it's going to be Brock.
Yeah, right? In a perfect world, I do not think Big E winning would be Like I actually think that would be like a really clever idea in this non-title scenario. But that is so counter to the way this Reigns character, it's like untouchable. And I don't see them doing that. So I imagine I could see your scenario. I didn't even brought in the crown idea that Reigns gets the win through his whatever nefarious means, but Big E gets the moment of at least getting the crown back to Woods as kind of his involvement here.
That would suck. I would hate that. But
I mean, would like honestly, Wai, if that's the scenario we're talking about, then this is them falling to this traditional brand versus brand deal that benefits none of their existing stories, because Big E should not be getting pinned now at all.
Yeah. Unless like Big E. Who's Big E's current opponent? Kevin Owens, like
Owens and Seth.
Owens might get involved, or maybe Seth
there's a lot
involved.
of stuff you can do, none of which I think is going to leave. I do not think this should go on last for all the reasons we've listed. I just can't see this ending without a lot of run-ins and bullshit that I would end the show with Becky and Charlotte. That match clearly has the most interest on the show. It's maybe the only match that has notable interest.
Yeah. I definitely, it's the match, whether or not you're buying into it, it's the match with the most meat on the bone, as far as story goes. Because some of these other, like, it's hard to, most of these matches have zero build. And if there's any build, it's like 1 week. And if there's
Nakamura and Damian Priest have not had an interaction. There has not been a challenge. There's been nothing. I'm sure we get something tonight, but there's like zero for this match. It is a match to make the numbers work for a Raw versus SmackDown best of 7.
Yeah, it's really there to fill out the card. I forget half the time who even holds these championships. So
we only have 6 matches as of now. So it doesn't even work out that a brand would have so maybe we get at least one more match added. So perhaps, the numbers make sense.
Do you have a prediction for Becky and Charlotte?
I could certainly see.
Before I even ask you that, what sort of work shoot stuff do we get to see?
I think they're going to work stuff into it for to make that absolutely. I think they very much want to play up off all of that, because without it, it's just a match, and everyone I think is watching with that. So in WWE fashion, I'm sure the announcers are going to play into it and will just make it actually unbearable if they have to make it. Hey, that wasn't listed. That's not the. No, I actually don't think they'll call that. It'll also be interesting who's calling this match. If it's like a combination of your broadcast teams, or if it's the SmackDown team. I actually think Pat McAfee is going to be awesome on this show, because he's going to get to be the homer for all the SmackDown guys, and I think he will actually be very good on this show.
Yeah. I think for this type of thing, he'll always be a bit of a highlight. My prediction, I think. I don't think it matters, quite frankly, but I see.
Ring the bell.
I think Becky.
Sharpshooter.
I think there's more value in Becky being champ right now. Charlotte's teasing something with Sasha. Maybe she'll get in the mix, but I feel like you should probably have. It also depends on who's going to win the main event, I think, or who's going to win the men's match. Because
this could come down to like
it's going to be one Raw, one SmackDown.
Yeah,
I would have to think, or maybe not. They don't have to, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting match in terms of how they put it together. Nakamura and Damian Priest, I have nothing to say. It's just going to be what makes sense for the numbers that they figure out of which brand is winning. Ditto for the Usos and RK Bro, although I don't imagine. Well, Riddle they can beat without any issue, because they do it constantly.
Yeah. I don't even care to make a prediction. It's just a match.
Yeah, no, none of these really matter in terms of who goes over. It's a numbers thing. And then the women's match is Raw's Bianca Belair, Carmella, Liv Morgan, Zelina, and Rhea Ripley against Natalya, Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, and Toni Storm has been added. So Toni Storm is she's back on the roster.
Added via tweet.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the way we've been announcing all these teams.
I think this is a good showcase for Bianca. I think she should be kind of I would see Raw winning this match with Bianca kind of leading the way here. But can they coexist? That is the ultimate question. And then the men's match has Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, and Seth Rollins on Raw against Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin, Jeff Hardy, and King Woods, with a member to be announced, I would assume, tonight. The Raw team is pretty strong. SmackDown, I mean, this could be a good match, I think.
Sure.
And that's a Survivor Series. It's coming up on Sunday night. We'll be live right afterwards. This has been an extremely cold build for the show. I think maybe we're being charitable that there is much on this card. It's like the build for Becky and Charlotte has existed online and go home promo on the MMA Hour. So that is the build for the show, because if you're just watching TV, I don't think this one jumps out at you at all. They've done very little on TV to encourage any of this. Like, this is all based on your audience that is following this at a larger level.
Yeah. I mean, this entire card really, I think the build has just consisted of whatever commercials that they're airing in between Raw and SmackDown, and that's really it. So we'll see what they do tonight to drive up interest. But beyond that, I like the build for this one has been pretty bad, but that's been the case for many of these WWE pay-per-views, and I usually come out of them pretty positive, because the wrestling usually is very strong. So if you're gonna look for great matches, I think you'll find it on Sunday.
It's not like every WWE pay-per-view is a thumbs up show, but it's very rare you get a thumbs down show. And if it is thumbs down, it's usually a booking decision rather than the actual matches. So I'm with you. I think as a standalone card, I'm sure this is going to be an entertaining show. And while not sold out, I think we'll get a pretty strong crowd out of the Barclays Center just in terms of engagement. You would hope so. This is one of their big arenas that they run.
Yeah.
But it is no Crypto.com arena.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's right. Okay, we're back tonight, 11:15 Eastern, for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Go check that out tonight, where we will also take your calls. But we're not going to bother asking you for Survivor Series thoughts unless you want to volunteer them. Then we will gladly take them. That's it. Goodbye.